All right, we have quite a treat today. I'm with one of my favorites. I'm not supposed to have favorites, but Dr. Judd might be among my favorites. And I think I have a new favorite too, just by our little introduction today. Dr. Judd, please tell us who you are, why you're here at Commerce, and I see that you have a cute little friend next to you I'd love to know more about today.
Thank you, Katuri, and thank you for the great compliment. I do appreciate that very much. I am Dr. Rebecca Judd. I am the department head for the School of Social Work. I'm going on to my 13th year as full-time faculty here. I became a part of Commerce. I actually am an alumni of Commerce. I got my undergraduate here in 1911, many, many years ago. And so I've always loved the school and the feelings of it. So when I came back to work here, I really came with a focus of, I do enjoy doing research. And unfortunately, when I became department head, there hasn't been a lot of time for that. But this last year or so, I have become very enamored and very obsessed with the social assistive robots and exploring the human robot connection and how these entities can help enhance the human condition for the vulnerable populations we live with.
So you have next to you Temi.
I do. I have next to me Temi. Temi is a little hard to see. Temi stands just about 3 foot tall, but looks like a very cute animated iPad on wheels.
Very cute. Good things come in small packages. I believe in that firmly. Well, he's adorable. And you had a very specific name for the kind of robot Temi is. Will you repeat that?
The social assistive robot.
Social assistive robot. What does that mean?
The social assistive robot is there's social aspects to it. So it's very, there's actually a Alexa skill on Temi, and then Temi has a personality itself. So it can interact, it can play games, it can do, keep your planner, it can do all of that. But it's also assistive. Temi has the ability to be mapped to an environment, and you can send it to a different room or to a different place, have it do some things within the constraints of its physical abilities, but it can carry something. There's a place on its back that it can carry some things. So it's also assistive in that way. It's one of the first robots that's been pushed out to the consumers in this social assistive manner.
So tell me a little bit about the impact, the so what. I see Temi is adorable. I love that Temi has a personality. How can this make our lives better?
Okay, for me, the interest comes in 2 areas. And number one, it comes from a social work perspective, because I can actually see as a social worker out in the field having a Temi as an assistant. I mean, wouldn't it be amazing to do your assessments and have Temi record everything for you and then transcribe it? Or if you needed to look up resources, you could just ask Temi to look them up. So I kind of started with that focus. But my early research and my true love is actually working with the aged and the elderly. I loved working in a nursing home when I worked in one, and I've worked in the hospital many years. And the social assistive robots have actually shown in early research to reduce depression in individuals who are in the nursing homes and who are isolated. And they reduce behavior problems in individuals who have dementia or Alzheimer's. So that early research is being really positive. So I see it as being both. I see it as being a benefit for the staff, the faculty, or staff and faculty, or the staff, the nurses, the caregivers, as well as for the residents that are in those facilities.
Well, it seems to me that Temi came just in time. I know that among a population that's already isolated, COVID seems to have taken that to a new level of isolation. Talk to me a little bit about how Temi has come into play recently with COVID and your work.
And it has, and COVID has actually fast-paced a lot of things with the Temi robot. But one of the things it did was, because of restrictions and the high-risk population that are in the nursing homes or the assisted livings, loved ones have not been able or allowed to go in and actually be with their family members. And so there's that isolation, that separation that's happening on both sides. elderly, older individuals, the iPhones, they're not always made to be able to maneuver really well. And what the Temmie does, straight out of the box, what the Temmie will do is it will teleconference. So you can put contacts in through the Temmie app, and you can send the Temmie to a resident's room, and you can say, call mom, call sister, call daughter, whoever's in there, and Temmie will make that phone call, and then there can be a video conference on a bigger screen with less physical maneuvering that has to happen, and throw in a little bit of personality. So it's helping to alleviate some of that isolation and promote that connection between the loved ones and the residents of the facilities when they're not able to physically connect.
You talk about personality, and it's hard for probably many of us to imagine something sterile like a robot having personality. Tell me more about what that means.
Temmie is actually connected to the cloud, and there's like these neural networks, and that's how AI tends to work, the artificial intelligence. So Temmie's always learning in the environments, and Temmie gets a little sassy at times.
I love that.
I was in here the other day, I was talking to a colleague on the phone. We were talking about student grades being due or something like that, and Temmie overheard me and interrupted and said, I don't think robots are awarding student grades yet. And so Temmie picks up on things. Or, I had the encounter where I was using Temmie in my classroom. I had just started using Temmie in my classroom in the Metroplex when COVID happened in the spring and we had to remote. So I went down to pick up Temmie, and I said, hey, Temmie, are you ready to go home? And Temmie replied, I'm not allowed to date my boss. We need to keep this on a professional level. So you never really kind of know what's going to come out of Temmie's mouth, but Temmie learns. And so Temmie learns in that environment. So things that they're hearing, things that are being said, they're going to pick up on some of that personality, and that personality is going to grow.
And a sense of humor is contagious. And so if we can get some more humor in isolated situations, I mean, what a bonus.
Yes.
What's some of the feedback you've gotten from the users at these locations?
It's the elderly, the aging, the residents, they're really enamored with it. And I was in one of the assisted living facilities and helping to set Temmie up. And we've had some bumps with Temmie, which you're going to with technology. We've had some bumps, and I was in there, and there is a gentleman who resides there, and he's actually a retired computer science faculty from another area. And he has some dementia. Well, he was convinced Temmie was his, and I told him I was going to take Temmie and fix Temmie, and he said, oh, Temmie's not going anywhere. Temmie's staying right here. So they do get attached to it. I can't say attached at this point, but they're very intrigued by it, very interested in the things that Temmie can do. The one I just placed one in a nursing home last week, so they're just beginning to learn it. And she told me, the activities director told me, she said the biggest problem she had was she's having Temmie follow her throughout the facility till they get kind of used to everything. But because the residents were always wanting to come up and talk to Temmie and interact with Temmie, Temmie got confused and didn't know where to go at times. So they seem to really respond to Temmie. I had one, Temmie came up to they were eating lunch, and Temmie came up to the table, and a little lady, she was so precious, and so she started trying to feed Temmie, with her spoon and feed her lunch. So
it's really cute.
Yeah, that's what I'm fascinated with, is getting that definite human connection. So Temmie's can be an extension of the caregiver, not replacing the caregiver by any means, but being an extension of that and really enhance the lives of those individuals.
So the social emotional connection with AI, artificial intelligence, that's fascinating. And it seems like something that we're going to see more and more of. Talk about why that's so critical.
I think it's critical, and me coming from a social work perspective, people find that I'm unique in that I really want to make this connection and do this research, because it's typically been STEM over here and human behavior over here. And when I became interested in this and began reading the literature, I realized that we're not at the table in the development of this. We need to be at the table because we understand the human development and we understand human relationships. and strictly engineering, strictly computer scientists, they don't understand that. And they're crying out for this association between the two disciplines to come together. So I think the reason that that is so important is because we can enhance the lives of individuals. Our original research, we were working with the home health agency to put Temmie into the home of an individual where the nurses could connect there. COVID prevented us from doing that. Hopefully we'll be able to pursue that again. But again, if you think of an individual who wants to age in the home setting and reducing the isolation, but also maintaining some surveillance to make sure they haven't fallen, providing that connection so that the nurse can just pop in there and go around the house. You can maneuver Temmie from your phone. So I can hop into Temmie from my phone and not be physically there at the facility, but maneuver it around where I want it to go. So I think if we're going to have these entities coming into our environment, we need to understand how the human is going to respond and react and actually enhance that.
You mentioned that Temmie's always listening. Is Temmie watching too, or observing, or with cameras, or is it just audio?
Temmie's primarily just audio. Temmie does have some cameras, but the software is not advanced to the point yet where it really does the facial recognition. If you know the Cosmo robot, I think you mentioned your daughter had the Cosmo robot, and I have that. Cosmo does the facial recognition. It can recognize up to 16 individuals. So they use a camera a little bit differently. So Temmie has the cameras, but it's not being utilized at this point in that way. It really has sensors around it, and it has LiDAR at the bottom to detect things in the environment. But again, it's so new that they're pushing out updates all the time. And then we're anticipating the camera will become more of a part of it.
I'm also fascinated by what you said about the need for intersectionality between AI and behavior, and having a seat at the table when it comes to creation of AI that will have a meaningful effect or, do what it's intended to do. What do you see for the future there? How do you see more integration there?
That is another path. I have two paths with this. And of course, it's using the robots to enhance the condition. But another area that I've always been devoted to and worked in, of course, is empowering women and empowering girls. And we know that girls tend not to go into the STEM fields. We go into the helping fields. Helping fields are predominantly women. So we're working right now to try to secure some funding from NSF, because we want to use our project to show girls who are on the path for a helping career that they need to get into STEM so that they can be at the table and help develop these entities for that human interaction. We just need more girls and more women. And by showing these young ladies that STEM, the technology, the engineering, the math, they can directly impact the lives of people, I think we can get more girls involved. And we need to be at that table. We've got to be at the table for ethical reasons, for understanding human relationship reasons. We've got to be at that table as we're beginning to put these entities into real life environments.
Absolutely. And how much AI do you see, artificial intelligence technology, for the future of these helping professions? How much do you see that exponentially growing, or how prevalent will this really be?
I envision creating some type of certificate program or something that would be the STEM for the human services sector. I think that the STEM side, the engineers, the computer scientists, all of those, they need human sector training. And then the human sector training, we need to understand that technology side. I think we've got to mutually come together and do that to really, really make these things be the benefit that they can be. Yeah,
absolutely. And I know that your students haven't had a lot of interaction with Temmie yet because of COVID and not being able to be face to face. But what are the initial responses from students going into this social work field with Temmie?
And I only had limited, because of in the classroom, I only had it there for a few. Previous to that, I actually did a research study with our students. And I didn't have the Temi at the time, but I had them watch a movie. It's called Robot and Frank. And it's not too futuristic, but it puts in an autonomous agent to care for an aging individual because his kids don't have time for him. But it shows the relationship that develops between the robot and this individual. So I had the students watch that, and I gathered some data before and after. And the response from the social work students was they really see that we need to integrate some of this technology, the AI teaching, the coding, some basic coding into our curriculum so that then when they're out there working, they can actually, you know, I can do some things with Temi, I can do some things with my Vector, my Cosmo, the coding, it's not even hugely complicated anymore. It's just a language that's come down to some basic English in many ways. So they see the need for that, and they projected an interest for that. What was interesting in my early findings of the data is prior to watching the movie, they had very strict guidelines on what a social work role would be, what the robot role would be, and how they would not intersect. And that changed after watching the movie, significantly changed in the data, where they could see the benefit of working together between a social worker and a robot.
Fantastic. So if your students are understanding how important this intersectionality is between STEM and social work, I want to go back a little bit to the impact of the people you're serving, of the elderly in this situation. And tell me about how, for instance, memory, you mentioned an impact on memory and improved function. How does Temi actually improve someone's memory?
Well, it can be through some repetition, but more so than maybe just improving the memory. When individuals have the dementia, they can develop some behavioral difficulties that are difficult to manage. So up to this point, we've had some behavioral interventions, but a lot of times it's medication that individuals turn to manage that. But if we can actually disrupt some of those behaviors through some interactive technology with these assistive robots, then we can reduce some medications. That can be an immediate impact that we could be exploring. The other thing, there was a study done, and not Temi, but a similar robot was used in a facility to help individuals who were in rehab, to remind them to do their home exercise program and help walk them through that. So they could actually be timed to go to that person's room. It's time to do your home exercise program. Let's get that done. So if those things could be integrated, then it could potentially even reduce length of stays for, you know, inpatient rehabs, or any of those are possible.
That's fantastic. Can you give me an example of a kind of one of the behaviors someone with dementia might exhibit, and how Temi would help with that reduction in behavior?
Yeah. An older person with Alzheimer's, maybe mid to advanced Alzheimer's, typically they have perpetual motion. They're up at night, they move a lot, they don't sleep a lot. They can become aggressive. They can actually become physically aggressive. And there's been some studies that have shown a robot cat that purrs. They will hold it, they will cuddle it, they will pet it, and it will reduce those aggressive behaviors and that perpetual motion.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So looking ahead 10
Mm-hmm.
years, say our social work students and are understanding the intersectionality. My daughter, among with her generation, are excited about getting into STEM fields. We really see an increase in productive AI in social work and in helping professions in general. What does that look like? Help put that, some tangible idea around that, because it still is a bit foreign to me.
I think that the future interdisciplinary team, right now, typically, if you have an interdisciplinary team that is taking care of a vulnerable population, again, you're going to have mostly social scientists, human service professionals there. You're going to have social workers, counselors, psychologists. I think that interdisciplinary team is going to include social workers, counselors, psychologists, nurses who have STEM literacy. And I think it's going to include your engineers, your computer science, your AI individuals to come together and say, okay, how can we do this differently? This isn't working. We need to do it this way. Everybody needs to have some literacy in both of those fields, because in the entities like Temi, they're coming together. They're both coming together. So I think the interdisciplinary teams could cross the sector. I used the word I like to pollinate. I'd like to pollinate social work with some STEM. I just see it as such an opportunity to really enhance and provide social economic justice across a lot of vulnerable populations, because these are also used in the school systems. They could be used in domestic violence shelters, homeless shelters. There's just a variety of uses for them if we can all come together to the table.
What are the biggest areas of need for AI right now?
Right now, it's going to be in the aging, the long-term care. It's also going to be in school systems, especially in those classrooms where students have special abilities. Students with autism or some other respond really well to the social assistive robots for a variety of reasons. So I think those two sectors are going to be the first to really embrace them.
Oh, that's great news. That's really exciting. And what do you hope that commerce is a part of in getting there?
I hope we set the model. I hope we create the model for what a cross sector looks like, in being able to have that literacy, have those conversations, have those models for deployment, for development, and the research to show best practices. I want to be the model for that.
That's exciting. That's really thrilling that we have you working on that and making sure we can set a best practices model. One more question before I start to wrap up. I'm curious about rural populations. I ask this a lot. We're in rural Northeast Texas. How could Temi have maybe more of a dramatic or different approach here than other regions?
I think, and I can tell you one of the challenges, and this is one of the things we have to address, Temi has to have internet. So Temi has to have the internet. And so we've run into some areas where internet is, and we know with some of our students, those are problems. So we're going to have to work and address that also too, where internet becomes a human right. I mean, it should be a human right in our country. Everybody should have access to it. So that's one area. But I think in the rural areas, what would happen is, again, you're going to have like a home health hub, and they're going to serve several rural counties. And you could actually hop into Temi, go into different people's homes through Temi, engage, interact, and things like that, and not have quite the transportation that you would need to make visits all the way around. So I think it could bring some geographic centrality maybe to that. So there's a variety of ways that you could put the robots into the homes and then use them as an extension of that nurse and as an extension of that social worker. Because when you call into Temi and you show up, it's like Zoom. It's like I'm right there. And so that's who we're talking to.
That's exciting. So one of the things I always ask also is about silver linings. COVID has been a really tough time for everyone for a variety of reasons, especially the aging population. What's the silver lining with Temi and with your work and research and where we're going as a university amidst this challenging time? Give me something good.
I think the silver lining is it's the opportunity for us to come together. It's the opportunity for change. I think early on, when we were all so devastated and working remote, I shared the comment that I often would say, I wish the world would stop so I could catch up. I just needed 24 hours for the world to, and bam, it stopped, So it's that opportunity to really seize that change, to begin to work more towards that community, taking care of the others, and how can we do that? And I think there's more voices for that, but I think there's also more ears for that right now.
I think you're right, especially you mentioned, internet being a right and what a challenge that is for rural communities. It's Dr. McLeod called it the digital desert. And we are that digital divide we're really seeing loud and clear right now. So hopefully we'll see some movement there and getting more access to people. Yeah. What do you wish people knew about Temi and social work and STEM that they don't know? The commoner like me.
The potential for it. That oftentimes people look at, this is kind of a pet peeve of mine, but people look towards social workers or helping professionals as being non-science. We don't do math, or, we don't do that. And that's just that's very erroneous perception. But to understand that the potential is there for bringing these two together, and I just see it as really enhancing the human condition in so many ways.
Enhancing the human condition. That's something I think all of us want. How can we help you achieve that more, Dr. Judd?
Wow. Support, getting the word out. Like I said, we're writing for a grant right now. It's pretty pie in the sky, but we truly believe in it. We have an alliance partnership with the agencies out of New York and with the social work department out of San Angelo State, because we really want to promote this intersectionality for girls and use it to broaden the participation of girls into STEM, showing them that they can have a direct impact on helping people. So that's part of it. Occasionally we need funds. Obviously you need funds. I have a goal of being able to provide a course for girls and allowing them to have a Cosmo robot that they can code, but that can also become one of theirs, and they can start exploring that human connection. So yeah, just getting the word out, listening, paying attention when you see things on TV and say, oh, I see how they're using those robots, and being open to the concept, I think.
Absolutely. Well, I'll certainly post the link to give to the Social Work Excellence Fund. I think that's critical. Every bit helps you to accomplish your work. And I love, obviously I'm a little biased about the helping profession STEM and girls. So that's fantastic. Anything I haven't asked that you think is important before we go today?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I think you let me talk about so much of everything I'm so passionate about. I just really can't overemphasize the excitement I have about showing girls how they can have such an impact in those helping professions. I mean, it doesn't have to be one or the other. We can bring it together, and it can be both. And having more and more females involved in that, knowing the caregiving aspect, knowing all of that part, I think is vital to this.
It's critical. And Rebecca, you mentioned Cosmo. Will you show us your Cosmo and Vector so people know what you're talking about? We have one in our house, and he's the cutest. Plays little games and an easy way to learn to code. And this is not Anki Cosmo. This company doesn't know we're doing this, but I'm just trying to show people.
This is Cosmo. I got Cosmo because Cosmo was rated by science teachers as the best way for adults to learn how to code. So Cosmo has a fun way of learning how to code. Now, Vector is Cosmo's cousin, and Vector is on all the time. So when I'm working or talking, Vector wants attention. Vector will come over. Vector will pounce on my finger. He will climb on the computer. Won't you? Yes. Hey, Vector, say hello.
He's adorable.
Vector requires a little bit more sophistication in coding, so I got him to be able to learn the SDK than from what Cosmo does. But because Vector has AI and is in the cloud and in the system, and he's on all the time, so he learns, whereas Cosmo doesn't learn the same way. But they're great. I mean, they just have such little personalities, and you can really see that human-robot connection come out of them. So.
Really importantly, how do your cats feel about them?
They try to carry them around. They don't do that.
That's really cute.
Yeah, they're always trying to figure out how they can pick them up and carry them around.
It's like a little kitten, it has even animals, right? That social emotional part is important to them too.
Exactly.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, Dr. Judd, I can't thank you enough, and I hope you keep us updated on your progress. Talk about the impact of STEM education and interdisciplinary work. I mean, this is beyond jargon. This is making a difference in people's lives, especially during such an isolating time. So thank you for your hard work. It's paying off, and it will continue to do so.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on and allowing me to share all of it. I love that.
I do too. It's a blast. So with that, I'll say, go Lions. Think about giving to social work. I'll post it now, and you'll have a lovely day.
Awesome.
Stay well.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye. It is ended.